Hi, and welcome to our series, Delivering the Tech That Delivers for Government, sponsored by Future Tech Enterprise on Federal News Network. I'm Vanessa Roberts, and I'm here with Kuan Collins of Booz Allen. Welcome, Kuan.
Thanks, Vanessa. It's great to be here. We really appreciate the time and opportunity to talk to you today.
Great. I'm super excited to talk to you as well. Kuan is the Vice President of Solutions Architecture at Booz Allen, and she's the latest super smart techie to join me for the series. Today, we're going to talk about innovative approaches that help Booz Allen employees meet and deliver on government missions wherever and whenever they need to. So, Kuan, let's jump right in, shall we?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So before we really get going, first, let's just kick off with just a little bit about you and what you do at Booz Allen.
Of course. So, Vanessa, thank you again so much for the time. You mentioned, my title, I'm Vice President of Solution Architecture at Booz Allen in Hamilton, and we are a leading provider of AI for the federal government and prime technical integrator for the DoD. So I have 25 years of experience working with the defense and federal civilian sector, primarily focused on emerging technologies. So developing roadmaps, architecture, strategies, solutions to help solve the government's most complicated problems. And today I'm primarily focused within our domestic resilience account. So those are clients from law enforcement and immigration agencies, as well as climate and infrastructure agencies. So everything from FBI to NOAA to Department of Energy. I'm also based in Huntsville, Alabama, and we're super excited to be in this location. There's so much growth in the region, especially on the arsenal and with the FBI establishing their second headquarters here. We've had our offices in Huntsville since 2003. We've opened an innovation center at the Stove House in 2021 to showcase some of these solutions that we're bringing to our customers. And we're excited about the city's growth and truly wanting to help the city with establishing themselves as a center of excellence around AI and cybersecurity. We're also really involved in the community in terms of supporting STEM initiatives, as well as just the community writ large with the sponsorship of the Trash Panda Stadium, as well as the Space and Rocket Center. So yeah, we're super excited to talk to you today about all of these initiatives.
That sounds like a ton is going on, and it all sounds super exciting. It also sounds a lot about what are a lot of the focuses of a lot of government agencies right now. So it's probably a really fun time for you and your job.
It really is. It is an exciting time, both from the work that we're doing as well as the way that we're bringing that to the community.
So maybe let's start talking a little bit about kind of the things that you and your team are doing really to drive innovation. You touched on a lot of them in that open, and really talk about how you're creating those great user experiences, both for employees, but also for customers, right? Because that's a huge piece of it, and kind of leaning into that human-centric design, people-forward aspect of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a step backwards, and just talk about the macro level of this. So the country is at a critical point, right? Public trust is an all-time low with government, and this need for services to be efficient and engaging is really critical. Within the election year, we've got geopolitical competition, budget uncertainties, strained resources, a changing workforce, right, in terms of age, diversity, all the things, and climate change. So what's drive all of those challenges really are driving agencies to think more critically around how do they bring these services to bear with all this disruption around them. And we're hyper focused on helping our clients stay ahead of all of these potential disruptions, and really helping them with strategizing around the executive orders for zero trust, AI, and customer experience. So our focus on innovation really is around modernization for these agencies and helping agencies with their data-enabled strategies. So what does that mean? Really, the future of government is really about how do we do better with the data that we have and make that actionable and make the decision-making as efficient as possible for the stakeholders within these agencies, as well as the stakeholders that they're providing the services to. So we're bringing emerging technologies like AI to automate across all of the use cases, from business operations all the way to mission critical systems and how those are being delivered. Cybersecurity best practices like zero trust in particular, and ensuring that we've got good cyber hygiene, as well as bringing innovation and enterprise level observability so that we can create these environments that will make uh, just cybersecurity in the backdrop, right? So the stakeholders don't need to be worried about whether or not their data is secure or not. And focusing on talent, you mentioned human-centered design approaches and things like that. At the end of the day, if we don't have a workforce that is trained in the way that they need to be trained to utilize and design these systems, there will be a lot of frustration, right, around the fact that we went and implemented cloud or we brought some AI capabilities to bear, but it really didn't change, right, the way that we were delivering the services, the way that we were doing the business. So with that, we need interfaces that are user friendly, that are intuitive, that will help with the adoption of these technologies, and that will be accessible user experiences. And all underpinned, as I mentioned, with cybersecurity measures, right? So that that doesn't need to be a threat when we're talking about engaging with these technologies. And it's really a combination of that people, process, and tools when we think about how to truly modernize these environments.
Yeah, are you finding like that implementation piece is such a huge factor, right? And I'm curious if some of the centers and things that you're doing there, if that's part of the answer, right? Is that a way that you see being able to kind of introduce these technologies and help people understand them and think about that kind of process change that also has to happen?
It definitely is resonating in terms of how we communicate, right, with the stakeholders, with our clients around why these technologies are so critical. Because at the end of the day, we need to couch the benefits, right, of these technologies and frame them around the customer's missions. We just celebrated our 110th birthday at Booz Allen, and our heritage is anchored in management consulting. We talk about how we invented consulting, and really that is all about that partnership with the customer to communicate not AI for the sake of AI, but how are we helping them to solve their problems? So we that human-centered design is really all about understanding first, right? What are we trying to do? And having that intimacy around the problem, and then showcasing how AI and cloud and better cyber practices really can enable much more efficiency and better solving of the problem, right? In a clearer, more coherent way, and having the stakeholders almost like joyful to engage with that agency around the services that they're providing.
Right. Right. I think that's part of it, right? Because I think there's also expectation on the part of the user, just to follow up, that there's going to be a different kind of experience that they have with the
Absolutely.
technology, right?
And
That's
we
part
want to sort of bridge the gap with their experiences at home, right? So when we go home, right, we've got AI in the context of how we're engaging with our everything from our refrigerators to our television, right? And we don't want that cognitive disconnect when they're now engaging with a government agency or in their workplace, right? And not having those types of services in a secure way to manage the work that they're doing. So, really, I think that's about bridging the gap with where technology is in the community generally, right? With the experience that they're having at work and with the services they're receiving from the government.
right. And there's a potential for AI even to help with managing those end devices to ensure that user experience is consistent, right? That's kind of like an
Absolutely.
exciting challenge that's happening today that I don't think people thought about or think about because it's kind of not what's in the public domain of discussions, right?
Right, right. Absolutely.
So maybe talk about you touched on several challenges and how you're kind of tackling them, but talk about how do you know when this something is working, right? And maybe when it's not too. And then kind of going back at it again, a second take. What are the things that you're using kind of as milestones or markers to help you gauge success and then repeat it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think around how do we know when a solution is working? At the end of the day, we know it's working when the agency's missions can be carried out, right? And the technology is sort of at the backdrop, right? So if we think about Department of Veteran Affairs, we're improving the way that veterans are being served faster, more efficiently. For FEMA, we're helping them with predicting when crisis or disasters are going to come, right? And being prepared to help the public, right, with all of the services they need as a result of that disaster. with the CDC, as we think about what we went through with COVID, right? Being able to help them with, providing their stakeholders, the public, with better information about how to manage those public health crises and protect the public health. So we know it's working when we are able to help our customers within these agencies to really deliver the services that they need to be delivered in a very efficient and cost-effective way, and sort of seamless to the stakeholders that they're serving.
How are
So
you
go
tapping
ahead.
into those kind of metrics to do that?
So there's a lot of different ways. I think, it starts with running pilots around very specific use cases. So whether it's, everything from how a stakeholder is receiving the service and going through customer engagement visits with the stakeholders, collecting that data from them through user experiences, and even internally within the organization, just looking at adoption rates, as well as vulnerability scans, and how are we responding to those threats? How are we meeting service level agreements, or what we might even call customer experience level agreements? Those are some of the ways that we are collecting data to ensure, one, that we are using the technology appropriately, and two, are we truly responding to the things that we're trying to protect in terms of those threats and disruptions within the environment?
You were talking about how you engage in major success, but let's also talk about kind of tackling challenges then in the mindset of that you come across when you're trying to achieve all these mission objectives of the government.
Thanks, Vanessa. So yeah, let's reflect back right on what we talked about in terms of the challenges just writ large, right? So the federal government is really facing the same challenges as the private sector, in terms of, again, the geopolitical tensions, the economic and civil unrest, the climate crisis, and the rise in cybercrime as a result of all of these technologies that are available, right? And the attack surfaces that creates, and because of the technical sprawl there. So the major difference is that in some cases, the public sector is a little bit behind in terms of modernization and how they are implementing innovation in these emerging technologies, right, to optimize the delivery of the service and bring the efficiencies that we know that these technologies can bring. And also in sharing the information more effectively, as a result of the modernization effort. So the primary problem that civil agencies are facing, and most agencies are facing, is around data, how they secure it and how people use it. Data, as we all know, it's a little bit cliche, but it's the most valuable resource and underutilized resource that all of these agencies have. And the future of government, honestly, is around how do we better enable the utilization of this data, to address all of the challenges that we just talked about, right? To make those decisions more effective, quicker, easier, because really there's so much unknown unknowns. What we want to do is sort of make it where the agency can do the business that they know how to do, so that they can really focus on the things that are out there that they haven't figured out yet, those much more complex issues. So agencies are at different points in their digital transformation journey. And so that even adds more challenges, because as we're thinking about inter-agency collaboration around that data, right, that data issue is becoming much more apparent. So we're really helping agencies with making sure that their data is secure, accessible, shareable, and actionable, but not just within an agency, but between agencies as well. We know that our colleagues in the Department of Defense are working around programs like JADC2, really, and all of that is about bringing together all of the stakeholders across the services, across the agencies, to do better with the data that we're sharing, so that we can stay predictive of all these potential disruptions and threats in the environment.
Right.
And the civilian agencies really need something very similar, right? Because we're seeing the need for that, like, joint task force environment, but that stood up ahead of time, so that all the agencies can bring that data together, that we can start to normalize around that for better information sharing, information management, data standardization, and being able to innovate with that data at the speed of mission. So what does
Right.
that involve? Oh, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, these challenges are not siloed into one department or one sub-agency. These challenges are often much larger than that, sometimes even beyond just the federal government, also including state and local government.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a need for multi-tenant cloud-based secure environments so that they can share in the event of these, these crises, everything from like, if we think about the Boston Marathon bombing, right? And the need for multiple agencies to be able to share all the information that was coming from the public, various organizations, you know, closed circuit television. And there's a need for a mix of on-prem as well as cloud-based storage so that we can share different classifications of data more easily and really see the power of these data-enabled missions.
Right. Well, maybe talk to that now. This is perfect lead into the next question, which is really how you see the innovation efforts that you have working on playing out in the near term and long term. And maybe start with that data enabled missions and data enabled strategies and kind of how people can get to that data enablement piece, because that's where I think most agencies do want to go. They have a lot of data. How can they best take advantage of it quickly, like in real time, as you're talking about?
So thanks for that. At the heart of the data enablement strategy and those solutions is the employment of AI and automation. And we're really focused on that technology. It's really the most important technology of our generation. And we're the leading provider of those AI services across the federal government, as I mentioned. So we want to help agencies with accelerating the adoption of AI. And really, there's a lot of unknown unknowns there too. So I think starting, where we think about the spectrum of how AI is deployed from the way it's helping with sort of basic use cases and business operations, and then leading to the much more complex mission focused and mission critical systems and how that's embedded in the delivery of those services. So Booz Allen, we've got a whole spectrum of tools, platforms, solutions, for helping an agency to design, develop, and field those AI capabilities, specifically for the US federal government and some of our commercial partners. And so that's a big area of focus and investment for us, and really helping with almost creating environments where we can discover together, right, where those can be the most impactful. Another area of focus is cybersecurity and zero trust. So the most important thing outside of AI is having an environment where this AI can reside and protect the data that it's being employed against. And zero trust requires scrutiny of an organization's strengths and challenges, and then developing that roadmap and path to true zero trust architecture. So that's about protecting the highest value assets within an organization. So the principles of zero trust are assume that there's always going to be a breach, right? We never trust, we always verify, and we only allow least privilege access to the environment. And so we are bringing all of these solutions to bear for the government to, again, ensure that we can secure an environment and allow the agencies to seamlessly employ these innovations within that secure environment. And then fundamentally, we talked a little bit about that customer-centric focus, that human-centered design. We are focused on innovation, but the people within that environment that's employing the innovation. Because these great tools are only effective if the people that are using them are really able to do their job more effectively. And this is not just a science project or an experiment. We want a culture of learning and experimentation and true collaboration with these tools. So we're focused on training associated with that. How do we train our employees, our client workforce to leverage and utilize these new emerging technologies, enhancing customer experience to increase adoption and utilization of these technologies to solve the customer's problems, and really creating front-end interfaces to help with that good experience internally and with the end users. Again, that increases adoption and drives changes that lead to the efficiencies that we're looking for here.
Right. It's that balance between the friction that you need to ensure that the data is safe and the frictionlessness that you want for the user, right? Because you don't want them to be so put off that they don't actually use it, or they look for workarounds, right? Because people are increasingly more tech savvy. So you have to
Absolutely.
find that balance, walk that line, right?
Yeah, and that's the key is to eliminate the workarounds because that's sort of where it creates additional threats in the environment that we want to minimize and mitigate.
Right, right. I want to touch just on one thing you talked about, which is that idea of like innovation, collaborating, looking together to look for ideas and find them, and that inquisitiveness factor. And you see like the future for some of this is an idea of like these ideas of sandboxes and those types of areas where agencies can come together, but agencies can also work closely with industry to test and try and develop things because the future is a little bit unknown, right, with AI.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I think in the ways that we talked about that environment, that multi-tenant cloud-based secure environment, that really is about not only creating production ready environments for all of the business solutions, but really that sandbox environment as well, where we can create a dev environment, spin it up, test out a data set or a use case or a technology, and ensure that it's going to deliver on what we're thinking it's going to deliver, right? So we establish a hypothesis around, can we deploy this service with this tool in the way that we're thinking about it, and is it going to truly get us to a faster outcome? Um, and then we talked about training, right? So it becomes not only a opportunity to prototype that technology, but an opportunity to train the team that's going to be deploying it. And so it's a great way to do sort of a lot of different things around the people and the tooling and establishing that business process associated with technology.
Right. Always against whatever your outcome is. You always have that first, right? Like, what is the outcome we're trying to achieve? And you can see your results against it. Sometimes surprising, right? You're sometimes surprised by the results you get back, and you're like, wow, this is taking a turn we didn't even know, which can be awesome.
Right, because all of that is information that we need in order to sort of figure out what's the next step, right? How if that AI did or didn't work in the way that we thought about it, how do
Right.
we take that feedback and now improve, and learn from that?
Let's go back to the cyber thing for just a minute. We have a
Sure.
couple more minutes left, but let's talk about really how are you kind of tackling that ever evolving cyber requirements, right? We talked about zero trust. That's a huge one. All the agencies are hard at work trying to achieve those milestones. There's supply chain risk management. There's a lot of things that go into this. Maybe talk about how you're tackling that on your side to make sure that people can access this data and do their jobs fully wherever they need to do them, because that's becoming really critical.
You're so right. Yeah, our focus is absolutely helping the government, especially with that upcoming deadline to meet zero trust directive. And zero trust is fundamental to all of that. And there's so much that comes with zero trust, right? I think it's a little bit of a buzzword, but that architecture um, and framework is about culture. It's about a mindset as well. Um, in addition to the tools and techniques that come along with that. So what we're doing is really looking at it very holistically, and working with the government to do everything from assessing its, strengths and weaknesses, right? The challenges within the environment. Where do we really need to focus in order to truly get to that zero trust objective? Um, Again, back to the principles of assuming the breach, never trusting, always verifying, and then going to that least privilege only access. Bringing in solutions where uh, they're really addressing the unique challenges of that organization. So I think it's a range of things. It's methodology, it's tooling, it's training the government to again make that part of the way that they're delivering all of their services as opposed to a one-off in terms of just focusing on that policy and that executive order. And we're seeing that play out in several of our current contracts at Department of Energy with Advanced Research Projects Agency Energy, where we're supporting uh, almost the vetting of those technologies as well. So it's not just about securing the environment, but how are we helping the government to vet all of these technologies and de-risk the technologies before we even address them and implement them within the organization. and also at the EPA. So we're doing a lot of work within the Office of Research and Development and helping them with their modernization effort. And there is a role for AI there as well, right, to help with that assessment and seeing where we have those vulnerabilities within the environment to then zero in on to zero, and no pun intended, on where we should be employing these zero trust tools and techniques to more effectively secure the agencies.
Well, Con, I really want to thank you so much. It was really great to talk to you today. I think there was a lot of interesting insights, and we talked about a lot of specific examples of things you guys are working on. There was also a lot of really, I think, cool tangents that we went off on. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Vanessa. Thank you again for the opportunity and the time, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Great. I'm Vanessa Roberts, and my guest today has been Kuan Collins. She's the Vice President of Solution Architecture at Booz Allen. To learn more about enterprise infrastructure best practices, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Future Tech. Have a great day and see you soon on federalnewsnetwork.com.